The Salishan languages are a group of languages of the Pacific Northwest. They are characterized by agglutinativity and syllabic consonants. For instance, the Nuxalk word xlpxltlplllskc, meaning he had had a bunchberry plant, has 13 obstruent consonants in a row with no phonetic or phonemic vowels. The Salishan languages are a geographically continuous block, with the exception of the Nuxalk, in the central coast of British Columbia, and the extinct Tillamook language, to the south on the coast of Oregon. The terms Salish and Salishan are used interchangeably by linguists and anthropologists studying Salishan, but this is confusing in regular English usage, because the name Salish or Selisch is the endonym of the Flathead Nation. Linguists later applied the name to related languages in the Pacific Northwest. Many of the peoples do not have self-designations in the languages. They frequently have specific names for local dialects, as the local group was more important culturally than larger tribal relations. All Salishan languages are extinct or endangered, some extremely so, with only 3 or 4 speakers left. Few Salish languages currently have more than 1 to 2,000 speakers. Fluent daily speakers of almost all Salishan languages are generally over 60 years of age. Many languages have only speakers over 80. Salishan languages are most commonly written using the Americanist phonetic notation to account for the various vowels and consonants that do not exist in most modern alphabets. Many groups have evolved their own distinctive uses of the Latin alphabet, however, such as the STATIMC family division. The Salishan language family consists of 23 languages. Below is a list of Salishan languages, dialects, and subdialects. The genetic unity among the Salish languages is evident. Neighboring groups have communicated often, to the point that it is difficult to entangle the influence each dialect and language has upon others. A 1969 study found that language relationships are highest and closest among the interior division, whereas they are most distant among the coast division. This list is a linguistic classification that may not correspond to political divisions, in contrast to classifications made by linguistic scholars. Many Salishan groups consider the particular variety of speech to be a separate language rather than a dialect. Belakula 1, Belakula-Kimskit, Nuxalk, Kwatna, Taleo, Coast Salish A, Central Coast Salish 2, Comox Kaomox, Tla Ammon 3, Harko-Melam Island Cowichan, Snunimugzu and Snornoa Halalt, Stumanus, Lamalcha, Malahat, Penlakit, Liaxon, Lake Cowichan, Downriver Musqueam, Katzik Quantlin, Snoqualmie, Sorvasan, Quiquetlam, 쌀-Włtłpłłskʷc, Upriver Styles, Chilliwack area bands, Tate, Square 4, Lashutseed Northern Skagit, Snohomish, Southern Duwamish Suquamish, Puyallup, Nisqually, 5, Nuxalk 6, Pendlach 7, Sekel, 8, Squamish I, Strait Salish Group 9, Clalambicha Bay, Eastern, Western, 10, Northern Strait Slummy, Porquichan aka Saanich, Samish, Semiamu, Soak, Songhees 11, Twana Quilcene, Skokomish, B. Samosanai, Inland 12, Cowlitz 13, Upper Chehalis Oakville Chehalis, Satsop, Tenino Chehalis, E. Maritime 14, Lower Chehalis Humpchilups, Westport Shoalwater, Winoochee, 15, Quinault-Queets, Quinault, C. Tillamook 16, Tillamook Silets, Tillamook Garibaldi Nestucca, Nephalem, Interior Salish A Northern 17, Shuswap Eastern Kinbasket, Shuswap Lake, Western Canama Lake, Chua, Deadman's Creek Kamloops, Fraser River, Pavilion Bonaparte, 18, Lillooet Fountain, Mount Currie Douglas, 19. Thompson River Salish Lytton, Nicola Valley, Spasm Boston Bar, Thompson Canyon, B. Southern 20, Coeur d'Alene 21, Columbia Moses Chelan, Enchant, Columbian, Wenatchee 22, Colville Okanaga Northern Quilchena and Amp, Spaxomin, Arrow Lakes, Penticton, Somilkameen, Vernon, Southern Colville and Chilium, Meadow, San Poil Nespelum, Southern Okanagan 23, Montana Salish, Kalispel, Tula, Kalispel, Upper Penderile, Spokane, Pentlach, Nuxalk, Twana, Lower Chehalis, Upper Chehalis, Cowlitz, Clallam, and Tillamook are now extinct. Additionally, the Lummi, Semiahmoo, Songhees, and Sauk dialects of northern Straits are also extinct. Genetic relations. No relationship to any other language family is well established. Edward Sapir suggested that the Salishan languages might be related to the Wakashan and Kaimakuan languages in a hypothetical Mosan family. This proposal persists primarily through Sapir's stature, with little evidence for such a family. No progress has been made in reconstructing it. The Salishan languages, principally Chehalis, contributed greatly to the vocabulary of the Chinook jargon. Family features: post-velar harmony, presence of syllables without vowels, grammatical reduplication, non-concatenation, tenselessness, nonelessness, syntax. Salishan languages are known for their polysynthetic nature. A verb stem will often have at least one affix, which is typically a suffix. These suffixes perform a variety of functions, such as transitive, causative, reciprocal, reflexive, and applicative. Applicative affixes seem to be present on the verb when the direct object is central to the event being discussed, but isn't the theme of the sentence. The direct object may be a recipient. For example, it may also refer to a related noun phrase, like the goal a verb intends to achieve, or the instrument used in carrying out the action of the verb. In the sentence, the man used the axe to chop the log with. The axe is the instrument and is indicated in Salish through an applicative affix on the verb. Applicative affixes increase the number of affixes a verb can take on, that is, its syntactic valence. They are also known as transitivizers because they can change a verb from intransitive to transitive. For example, in the sentence, I got scared. Scared is intransitive. However, with the addition of an applicative affix, which is syntactically transitive, the verb in Salish becomes transitive and the sentence can come to mean I got scared of you. Although there is a wide array of Salish languages, they all share some basic traits. All are verb initial languages, with VSO being the most common word order. Some Salishan languages allow for VOS and SVO as well. There is no case marking, but central noun phrases will often be preceded by determiners while non-central NPs will take prepositions. Some Salishan languages are ergative, and many take unique object agreement forms in passive statements. Subject and object pronouns usually take the form of affixes that attach the verb. All Salish languages are head-marking. Possession is marked on the possessed noun phrase as either a prefix or a suffix, while person is marked on predicates. In Central Salish languages like Tillamook and Shuswap, only one plain NP is permitted aside from the subject. There are three general patterns of negation among the Salishan languages. The most common pattern involves a negative predicate in the form of an impersonal and intransitive state of verb, which occurs in sentence initial position. The second pattern involves a sentence initial negative particle that is often attached to the sentence's subject, and the last pattern simply involves a sentence initial negative particle without any change in inflectional morphology or a determiner complementizer. In addition, there is a fourth restricted pattern that has been noted only in Squamish. Nonelessness. Salishan languages exhibit predicate-argument flexibility. All content words are able to occur as the head of the predicate or in an argument. Words with noun-like meanings are automatically equivalent to when used predicatively, such as ʷłtłpłłskʷc, which means coyote. Words with more verb-like meanings, when used as arguments, are equivalent to or. For example, ʷłtłpłłskʷc means goers. The following examples are from ʷłtłpłłskʷc. An almost identical pair of sentences from Steamsits demonstrates that this phenomenon is not restricted to ʷłtłpłłskʷc. This and similar behavior in other Salish and Wakashan languages has been used as evidence for a complete lack of a lexical distinction between nouns and verbs in these families. This has become controversial in recent years. David Beck of the University of Alberta contends that there is evidence for distinct lexical categories of noun and verb by arguing that, although any distinction is neutralized in predicative positions, words that can be categorized as verbs are marked when used in syntactic argument positions. He argues that Salishan languages are omnipredicative but only have unidirectional flexibility, which makes Salishan languages no different from other omnipredicative languages such as Arabic and Nahuatl, which have a clear lexical noun-verb distinction. Beck does concede, however, that the ʷłtłpłłskʷc argument tux above does represent an example of an unmarked verb used as an argument and that further research may potentially substantiate M. Dale Kincaid's 1983 position that all Salishan content words are essentially verbs and that the use of any content word as an argument involves an underlying relative clause. For example, with the determiner T translated as that which, the arguments dux and tsbiaw would be most literally translated as that which goes and that which is a coyote, respectively. Historical linguistics. There are 23 languages in the Salishan language family. They occupy the Pacific Northwest, with all but 2 of them being concentrated together in a single large area. It is clear that these languages are related, but it's difficult to track the development of each because the histories are so interwoven. The different speech communities have interacted a great deal, making it nearly impossible to decipher the influences of varying dialects and languages on one another. However, there are several trends and patterns that can be historically traced to generalize the development of the Salishan languages over the years. The variation between the Salishan languages seems to depend on 2 main factors: the distance between speech communities and the geographic barriers between them. The diversity between the languages corresponds directly to the distance between them. Closer proximity often entails more contact between speakers, and more linguistic similarities are the result. Geographic barriers like mountains impede contact, so 2 communities that are relatively close together may still vary considerably in the language use if there is a mountain dividing them. The rate of change between neighboring Salishan languages often depends on their environments. If for some reason 2 communities diverge, their adaptation to a new environment can separate them linguistically from each other. The need to create names for tools, animals, and plants creates an array of new vocabulary that divides speech communities. However, these new names may come from borrowing from neighboring languages, in which case 2 languages or dialects can grow more alike rather than apart. Interactions with outside influences through trade and intermarriage often result in language change as well. Some cultural elements are more resilient to language change, namely, religion and folklore. Salishan language communities that have demonstrated change in technology and environmental vocabulary have often remained more consistent with the religious terminology. Religion and heavily ingrained cultural traditions are often regarded as sacred, and so are less likely to undergo any sort of change. Indeed, Cognate lists between various Salishan languages show more similarities in religious terminology than they do in technology and environment vocabulary. Other categories with noticeable similarities include words for body parts, colors, and numbers. There would be little need to change such vocabulary, so it's more likely to remain the same despite other changes between languages. The coast Salishan languages are less similar to each other than of the interior Salishan languages, probably because the coast communities have more access to outside influences. Another example of language change in the Salishan language family is word taboo, which is a cultural expression of the belief in the power of words. Among the coast languages, a person's name becomes a taboo word immediately following the death. This taboo is lifted when the name of the deceased is given to a new member of his/her lineage. In the meantime, the deceased person's name and words that are phonetically similar to the name are considered taboo and can only be expressed via descriptive phrases. In some cases, these taboo words are permanently replaced by their chosen descriptive phrases, resulting in language change. Pragmatics. At least one Salish language, Salish, differs from Indo-European languages in terms of pragmatics. Pragmatics loosely deals with the role that context plays in meaning. Salish does not allow presuppositions about a hearer's beliefs or knowledge during a conversation. To demonstrate, it's useful to compare Salish determiners with English determiners. English determiners take the form of the articles a and the. The indefinite articles a and refer to an object that is unfamiliar or that has not been previously referenced in conversation. The definite article the refers to a familiar object about which both the speaker and the listener share a common understanding. Salish and several other Salish languages use the same determiner to refer to both familiar and unfamiliar objects in conversation. For example, when discussing a woman, Salish speakers used to refer to the woman both when initially introducing her and again when referencing her later on in the conversation. Thus, no distinction is made between a unique object and a familiar one. This absence of varying determiners is a manifestation of the lack of presuppositions about a listener in Salish. Using a definite article would presuppose a mental state of the listener, familiarity with the object in question. Similarly, a Salishan language equivalent of the English sentence, "It was John who called," would not require the assumption that the listener knows that someone called. In English, such a sentence implies that someone called and serves to clarify who the caller was. In Salish, the sentence would be void of any implication regarding the listener's knowledge. Rather, only the speaker's knowledge about previous events is expressed. The absence of presuppositions extends even to elements that seem to inherently trigger some kind of implication, such as again, more, stop, and also. For example, in English, beginning a conversation with a sentence like, "It also rained yesterday," would probably be met with confusion from the listener. The word "also" signifies an addition to some previously discussed topic about which both the speaker and the listener are aware. However, in Salish, a statement like, "It also rained yesterday," is not met with the same kind of bewilderment. The listener's prior knowledge is not conventionally regarded by either party in a conversation. Only the speaker's knowledge is relevant. The use of pronouns illustrates the disregard for presuppositions as well. For example, a sentence like, "She walked there, and then Brenda left," would be acceptable on its own in Salish. The pronoun she can refer to Brenda and be used without the introduction that would be necessary in English. It is key to note that presuppositions do exist in Salishan languages. They simply don't have to be shared between the speaker and listener the way they do in English and other Indo-European languages. The above examples demonstrate that presuppositions are present, but the fact that the listener doesn't necessarily have to be aware of them signifies that the presuppositions only matter to the speaker. They are indicative of prior information that the speaker alone may be aware of, and his/her speech reflects merely his/her perspective on a situation without taking into account the listener's knowledge. Although English values a common ground between a listener and speaker and thus requires that some presuppositions about another person's knowledge be made, Salish does not share this pragmatic convention. In popular culture, Stanley Evans has written a series of crime fiction novels that use Salish law and language. An episode of Stargate SG-1 features a culture of extraterrestrial humans loosely inspired by Pacific coastal First Nations culture, and who speak a language referred to as Ancient Salish. Bibliography: Beck, David. Grammatical Convergence and the Genesis of Diversity in the Northwest Coast Sprachbund. Anthropological Linguistics 42, 147–213. Bose, France, A. al. Folk Tales of Salishan and Sahaptin Tribes. Memoirs of the American Folklore Society, 11. Lancaster, Pennsylvania, American Folklore Society. Zaikovska, Higgins, E.W. and Amp Kinkid, M. Dale. Salish Languages and Linguistics, Theoretical and Descriptive Perspectives. Berlin, Mouton de Gruyter. ISBN 3-11-015492-7. Davis, Henry. On the Syntax and Semantics of Negation in Salish. International Journal of American Linguistics 71.1, January 2005. Davis, Henry, and Mathewson, Lisa. Issues in Salish Syntax and Semantics, Language and Linguistics Compass 3-1097-1166. Online. Flathead Culture Committee. Common Names of the Flathead Language. St. Ignatius, Mont. The Committee. Jorgensen, Joseph G. Salish Language and Culture. 3. Bloomington, Indiana. Indiana University Publications. Kiyosawa, K.O. Donna B. Good. Salish Applicatives. Leiden, Netherlands. Koninklijke Bril N.V. Krober, Paul D. The Salish Language Family, Reconstructing Syntax. Lincoln, University of Nebraska Press in cooperation with the American Indian Studies Research Institute, Indiana University, Bloomington. Kuipers, A.R.T.H. Salish Etymological Dictionary. Missoula, Montana. Linguistics Laboratory, University of Montana. ISBN 1-879-763-168. Lietka, Stefan. Wakishan, Salishan Impenution and Wider Connections Cognatsets. Linguistic Data on Diskette Series, No. 09. Munchen, Lincoln, Europa. Pilling, James Constantine. Bibliography of the Salishan Languages. Washington, G.P. O. Pilling, James Constantine. Bibliography of the Salishan Languages. Reprint by Gardner's Books. ISBN 978-1-4304-69278. Silver, Shirley, Wiccar, Miller. American Indian Languages, Cultural and Social Contexts. Tucson, University of Arizona Press. Hamill, Chad. Songs of Power and Prayer in the Columbia Plateau. The Jesuit, the Medicine Man, and the Indian Hymn Singer. Corvallis, Oregon State University Press. ISBN 978-08707-6751. Salishan Language Hymns. Thompson, Lawrence C. The Northwest. Inti. A. Sabiok, Linguistics in North America. Current Trends in Linguistics. The Hague. Mouton. Thompson, Lawrence C. Salishan in the Northwest. In L. Campbell and Amp. M. Mithun, The Languages of Native America, Historical and Comparative Assessment. Austin, University of Texas Press.